the thing. Okay, now our meeting's to order. We have such a lovely audience here today. They're all invisible today. They're ghosts. Okay. You're up for the pledge, please. Oh, now turn this down. No public, no comments, no presentations. They're not here. Okay, minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? All right, are there any changes or corrections?
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor, press your button. Okay. Da-da-da-da. Oh! Passes unanimously. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're already up to tournament policy. Is there a preview or anything?
I'm actually going to turn it over to Recreation Manager Laura Lissack and Recreation Supervisor Bill Berry to give the presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. At its meeting on May 18th, the Commission discussed the tournament policy and request that we come back to review the policy at this meeting. Back in September 17th of 2015, the Parks and Recreation Commission approved the sports tournament policy that allocates the 11 sports tournaments per year at the Lake Forest Sports Park, along with Heroes Park. The allocation of sports tournaments are done in accordance with the priority assigned to the sports user group according to the municipal code. Tournament dates have been selected each year so as to not conflict with the scheduled maintenance, field closures, or user group sports seasons. The current soccer seasons and field closure are listed in the report. Hopefully you were able to review that. And our tournament application guidelines are as follows. I'm just going to go over these just so that we both hear and see everything, along with if you have any further questions, and then we can elaborate on those. The 11 weekends to accommodate the sports tournaments are identified each calendar year. These dates will be published online each fall for the following year and can be viewed on the Sports Park webpage, which many user groups refer to. The Community Services Department will accept the tournament applications from all user groups between January 1st through the 15th. That's when Bill accepts the applications and reviews them at those times. The resident user groups will receive priority through January 15th. Requests received from non-resident groups will be considered on a first-come, first-served basis after January 15th. And as we know, a minimum of 6 weekends will be reserved for resident groups 2 through 4, and the Community Services Department may approve as many as 8 tournaments for resident groups if sufficient requests are received that can be accommodated. After the city approves tournament dates for resident groups, the remaining weekends will then be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis to non-resident groups, which are the remainder groups 5 through 8, and all applications received between January 1st and 15th are date and time stamped to establish priority. And that's what Bill does each calendar year in order to establish, not only priority, residency, where everybody, fits in that for allocating tournaments and assigning those. So we are here today, like we were here at the previous meeting, to again review tournament policy and for staff to be directed as to whether we want to adjust the tournament policy that we currently have or to maintain the current policy and move forward with reviewing maintenance practices. So if we would like to have a discussion from the Commission as to the direction that we like to go in.
Okay, so I'm wondering, do we want to take our tournament policies and fees go section by section, or just...
Well, if I may suggest
Yes.
that we divide it into, like you said, sections.
Right.
One that would cover the verbiage
Right.
in the tournament policy, another which would cover fees, And then number 3, and maybe should be number 1, which is most important, field availability is the key catalyst to make everything go. And we spent time previously in a, how do I want to say, a state of kind of shock that we were up against the wall with the condition of our fields, the money to keep them into the proper order, and things like that. And I think we all agreed, based on the information presented, that I think it was pretty unanimous that we need to look at cutting back, doing that. Kind of like at a trial, when new information comes to light, it can very drastically maybe affect where we are and what we are looking at. And I think, in all honesty, there is some new information that we need to at least put in our thinking caps in going through, especially the allocation for tournaments, more or less, who gets what, and et cetera, based on today, having had an opportunity to go to the city next to us, Irvine, where Mr. Director got a wonderful suntan, and I got to the point where if I didn't put some water in my system, I was going to pass out right on the parking lot right there. But some very, very interesting protocols, methods of maintenance, things that they do came to light. And I'm going to kind of be brief and summarize it. Like anybody who maintains fields, and it doesn't matter that they have 3 times the number of fields we do, they have 3 times the residents, and et cetera, et cetera. All fields need maintenance, and maintenance is a costly item. The basic differences that came out is, for instance, the person here who is responsible for the maintenance has done things in the same way for as long as I can remember being on the commission. Okay? His counterpart in Irvine, and it's bigger, there are actually 2 counterparts doing the same job. Before they came to work for the city of Irvine, they both were superintendents at golf courses, which basically, you're in the grass growing business,
Right.
and the field maintenance business, and you can't afford to have a golf course look like a sports field. They have done a number of things that have moved them into the 21st century, as opposed to our program basically being the same. It's like having a gardener who really knows plants and how to maintain them and how to grow them and how to do whatever, or, as I like to call it, the typical one we all have at our homes, who are known by 3 words: mow, blow, and go. And that's pretty much what they do as a daily thing. They have employed techniques that have obviously cost money starting out, but they're not going to have a situation as had been presented to us. It's going to take $500,000 to restore the damage.
Right.
And probably, unless we drastically cut back, which will affect everybody, we will be spending the same amount of money in 2 years, maybe 2.5, okay, at best, as opposed to already the high fee of maintenance that, in this case of sports car, the facility requires, as opposed to their approach, which was gradual, of taking the money and spending it on the techniques. I'm going to share one with you because I know the site very, very well myself. It's in Irvine. It's a 2-field complex, full-size soccer fields, lacrosse fields, etc. It's on Culver, called Hicks Field. And what they found is they were watering, I hope I have the directions right, but it really doesn't matter if they're east to west.
Okay.
And in doing so, there was a tremendous amount of water going on areas in the middle of the field that were by use getting kind of thrashed. Now, when they're wet or damp, they're going to get torn up even more,
Right.
twice as much, because they're wet, and it's a safety factor, et cetera, et cetera. So they came up with a brilliant idea. If we water north-south in that direction, we don't hit that part of the field. We hit the goal boxes, which are typically torn up, which need the water, et cetera, et cetera. Their maintenance had been $150,000 a year for that facility. They went out and spent close to $200,000 one time. Their maintenance is now $20,000 a year for that facility.
Wow.
Those are good numbers.
Yeah.
In their irrigation, and I think, Scott, correct me if the term I have it wrong, it's fertigation, was that? Fertigation. What that does is, as it waters, and everybody uses reclaimed water, which is not the best for plant life, but they have the fertilizer already mixed in there. So the fertilizer goes in the soil as opposed to the old line concept of the granular approach where you're throwing it out on the field, or with a seeder and it's just granules that are out there. They have, I can't remember the name of the plant, we have a lot of them at the sports park and they always look like they're about to go under. They have the same breed of plant. What they do is they don't have the water sprinkled on them, the salt water, which then bakes. They have drip lines. So they don't lose the plants that often and have to
Right.
replace stuff that looks like kind of crazy. And in doing these kind of things, they are running almost at total capacity. They have the same kind of hours that we have. They have a little bit of a luxury of being able to rotate a field here or there, but it's not a requirement necessarily. So I think one of the things we need to consider in looking at this whole, where are we going with this, would be to make a recommendation. And Public Works was there, and our mayor was there, and so it isn't just that we had the benefit of hearing something and now it's like, let's go and try to sell it to everybody.
Right.
But there were people there from all parts of the involvement with this situation that saw and heard, and, I think there's consideration about to happen in a serious way that we look at investigating, if that's the right word maybe, those technologies, ways of doing the maintenance as opposed to the way we are and keep doing it now. Because all we're doing is putting a very expensive Band-Aid.
Right. So, it's on already. I thought we were doing fertigation already. Did I imagine that?
No, we don't have a fertigation. We fertilize,
Yeah.
but we don't have a fertigation system, which is basically a tank. And the neat thing about it is that you can. This was not on the agenda, but I know that there is a nexus with the tournaments, and you're going
Right.
to clarify that. But fertigation system, it's essentially a tank that's connected to the irrigation system. When you put chemicals in it, it goes out through the irrigation lines, and it's absorbed much faster than the old way of applying chemicals and fertilizer to fields, which is granular or just throwing it out there and waiting for it to be absorbed. So you can use this system not only to fertilize your turf, you can use it to address the salinity, to mitigate the salinity in the water, to address problems with the soil chemistry, a lot of really good uses. So what we're doing is we're in the process of exploring other maintenance techniques and best practices that we're still learning. And the city council still needs to provide direction next Tuesday. But the direction that I think we're going in is that we'll be exploring new maintenance techniques, which would enable us, I think, where Commissioner Rosenberg was coming from was, we may be able to accommodate additional tournaments if that's what you're looking to do. And we have some ideas on really simple, easy ways to do that, depending on what, the consensus of the commission tonight. Did I
No,
sort of
you're
encapsulate
right
that?
on.
Okay.
And to go there, if we don't have this maintenance nightmare that is causing us to say, I don't know, Bill, maybe you can give me what that 300 and X number of hours is that 10% of the overall or 8% or whatever, but it's still a part of it, which would mean X amount of game opportunities lost. So to try to, and it's not going to happen in a week or 2 weeks.
Right, gradual.
Best practice is, how can we get more time? Well, first of all, Irvine, with these programs that they're using, closes down for 8 weeks. And they're pretty
Adamant.
stuck on that, and occasionally there is an exception made, but not usually. The maintenance schedule we have, even though there is an occasional exception to that, also is 11 weeks.
Oh.
So that's in the fall. That's a bit more. Everybody's pretty much on a 30-day basis in the winter or spring. So there would be that way opportunities, if we could get to that level, to add, quote, tournament play, either in the winter, and that's the time when there are tournaments, late January, early February, before the norm spring season start, and in the fall, in, let's say, the latter part of August, because the normal fall season doesn't start till the Saturday after Labor Day for everybody. So that offers some opportunities to look at. Again, and thanks to Bill for providing a lot of meaningful information. Yeah, we are kind of, with the soccer community, somewhat maxed out, including the other fields, the Borregos, the Regencies, the city fields. Why are we? Well, the difference is, when I was involved actively and doing the 10-city program, the local region for AYSO had 3,300 players.
What do we have there?
We didn't have a sports park. Heroes Park was our sports park. I don't even think it was called Heroes Park. It was called the Pit, lovingly.
Yes.
And they made it worked. 3,300 kids played. It's down to 1,800 now. The difference is, at the time, they used a lot of school fields. All right? So now we have a concentration of their games and everybody else's desire to be at the sports park. The sports park is it. That's the holy grail, the mecca of sports and soccer in Lake Forest. What's interesting is Irvine has something called the Great Park, all right? And we found out today the Great Park operates at a revenue requirement level of 100%. They have to recoup, basically, whatever they spent, as opposed to it being funded by the city. So if you play at the sports park, you pay more for field usage than you do at where we were, Oak Creek Park today, Hicks Field, any of the other city fields and parks, of which there's a ton of them as well. And the user groups involved are willing to pay for what they get. And I think, in looking at the amount of money that it's going to cost, even without this kind of cancerous treatment and the patient being in critical care every couple of years, I think the tab is still close. If I'm not wrong, it's got to $1 million for the maintenance of that facility. And I remember I heard it from Scott, and I can't remember if it was at the meeting last time or just conversationally, that I think our revenue recovery from tournaments was $17,000.
About 18,000.
Okay, all right. Let's say 20 for round figures.
It's actually in the report.
Okay, and that's, I don't think we're going to get to $1 million, to be honest, ever, unless we charge them $20,000 a field for every hour they use
Let's
it.
use
Well,
them.
not with just tournaments, because the Great Park does more than just tournaments.
No, I know they do. I know they do. But their user fees are higher for Great Park fields, for no matter what it is, than it is for the city fields. Our Borrego, our Regency, our...
Would it be worth looking into doing something
Yes.
like that?
Yeah,
Or
that was one thing. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing that up, because that was one direction that I think we should look at.
Absolutely, I agree.
We should look at that.
Just as a reminder, the only thing that's on the agenda tonight is the tournament policy. So if you want to direct the commission, or I'm sorry, if you want to direct staff to do a fee study and bring back something relative to tournament fees,
We do that
can
in
do
like
that.
public comments or later the comments.
No, that would actually be, you would need to make that motion here.
Right now?
And there would need to be
Okay,
a consensus.
At that point, I would
Right.
like to ask my colleagues for consensus, for staff to bring back for review, and then eventual upscaling to the council, usage fee schedules for
Sports tournaments.
sports.
And just to clarify, what we would do is, we would do two things. We'd do a market study, we'd look at what surrounding cities charge for their tournaments, and then we'd do what's called a fee study, which is we would figure out what is our actually cost basis to
Correct.
provide the fields for use, and we would demonstrate, we're sort of required to do that. We would demonstrate
it's
that
fine.
whatever we could possibly charge that the market would bear would still
Yeah.
be far below the actual cost of providing the service. But
But let me ask one question with that. Yes, we do. With Irvine having, let's say, this two-tier approach, can we explore that as part of it?
you can, yeah, absolutely. You can explore
Lieutenant
that.
Gell, do you have a two-tier approach for this complex versus everything else, or like the Crown Valley complex, which is their shining star? And just ask the question. They may not. They may just charge more for everything, but we'll find out. But it'd be
explore
nice
that.
to know if there is an A level and a B level. So that would be included. So yes, that's the motion or
That's the motion.
the request for consensus.
May I have a second?
Second?
Okay. Do we need discussion, or are we good? Oh, yes.
Just remind everyone to talk into their mics.
I have a question. So I understand the bigger picture. What was the original thinking from the inception on terms of fees? Because we're obviously going to depart from that on this motion.
Well, the original, so the commission and the city council set the fees. Actually, let me back up. These fees, these are, I believe, the same tournament fees that we had since day.
That's
before
right.
we
They've
opened,
been
right?
fixed.
Yeah, these are old. These are very old. And just to put this into perspective.
But the intent wasn't really viewing them as user fees as much as general fees based on competitive fees around what other cities are doing.
These are just like any other fee. where
That's right,
you
like
can-
any other fees.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the sense that we can set them where we think the market would bear, and we just, it's really to the commission's
So are we going to redo a study that we originally did at the beginning?
If the commission passes this, yes, direct staff to do this, we will study just tournament fees, and we'll bring back information on what other cities charge and what the options would be
I
for the city of Lake
Okay.
Forest. Right.
Was it just?
No, it wasn't just terms. That was user fees. We'll talk about terms
User
tonight.
fees? Okay, well, we
Are we talking
can't-
about,
For future action.
we can't discuss other fees tonight because that hasn't been agendized,
Right.
right? So
We're asking-
I actually would need to
so-
conduct a public hearing to bring this back to the
Okay,
commission.
no, that's fine. Just give me the guidance that we can't talk about the fees in here. We can talk about everything else.
so there is the proper language tournament fees rather
Tournament
than
fees.
user fees?
Correct.
So
User
really-
fees is very broad. That's
Okay, so
that's
we're
all your
talking
fees.
about tournament fees.
Tournament fees, that's correct.
What about, though, again, what we heard today is it's not just tournament fees at, let's say, the Great Park, but anything that plays there pays a higher user fee.
Correct.
So it would be a combination, of tournament fees, because tournaments bring in a certain amount of income, a very nice amount of income for the organization that puts on the tournament, as opposed to using the A facility, let's say, for practice. So they have a higher fee structure for that, encompassing both user fees and tournament fees.
So if the commission would like to broadly direct staff to study user fees, we can do that. That will take a few months
Okay.
to do
Can
that
we
research
just
and
say
bring that back.
user fees and tournament fees?
You can just,
Differentiate them?
absolutely.
Okay, then that's what I would like to.
So are you amending?
Okay, the motion restated is to request that staff do an analysis of user, meaning practice,
Sports user fees.
sports user fees, and tournament fees in neighboring cities, with also an emphasis on finding out if there is a two-tier system in any other city. That good, Lisa?
A second?
Still the same, yeah.
Second.
Seconding the restated motion. Now, any further discussion? All right, all of us vote, please. Oh, yep, okay, great, thank you. Passed unanimously.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Looking through the tournament fees, do you just charge a flat rate? Is there any type of security deposit in case something, I mean, if something gets damaged?
The only security deposit we charge is for use of scoreboards, which is an $825 security deposit.
Okay,
Other than that, the groups are billed following their tournament.
okay,
And Lisa, they all have liability insurance that they have to furnish,
right,
a minimum of $1 million, and a lot of places now it's $2 million.
understood. Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah.
That's definitely good.
Well, let's reel this back.
So are
Okay.
we discussing tournament, can we have an open discussion on
So we
The
will-
tournament policy, absolutely. So you've given us direction on the fees. You can discuss the policy also.
Okay.
But we can't, we should not, as you're saying, at this time, talk about on page 2, on this older version, maybe page 3 and the other one, that Group 1 and Group 2 pays $200, Group 8 pays $450. That's a different discussion.
You can certainly discuss that this evening, but because you've already provided direction to study the fees,
Okay.
we're already going to do that.
Okay, fine.
Right.
And then there'll be a separate discussion where we could make, quote, suggestions, maybe just to say, well, raise them all $100, or based on...
It would be, I think, a more meaningful discussion if you waited until we completed the fee study and brought it
yeah,
back. That's
I'm-
correct.
I'm saying that based on what we see that is brought back, we may come up with a, across-the-board thing, or
Yes,
just to help with the revenue recovery a little bit.
certainly,
Okay,
certainly.
Okay, so back to the initial discussion point of the tournaments. I was looking at analyzing the data here, which I find very interesting. I need to understand, if you look at the 11 sport tournaments in 2016 and 2017 on the next back page, I see that there was adjustments made on the 17 schedule, whereby you were actually adding Group 8, which on 2016, you didn't have any Group 8s at all that I could see. I'd like to know what was the thinking process that went into that to make that change, because that's significant, because you added three Group 8 slots for 2017, but you didn't have any slots for 2016. And I'd like to know...
which ones are you referring to specifically?
The Group 8 looks to be softball.
The sport park tournaments, 17, and then
Are you talking about the women's adult?
the Group 8s,
Softball.
the user Group 8s.
That's an easy thing to explain. I'm going to let Bill Berry explain
An
that.
understanding of that.
It's all based on whether they're a commercial entity, are they a Lake Forest-based, is there a Lake Forest-based softball program that has an adult program that's got a business here that wants to run a tournament, they would be classified as a Group 7. Outside of the city of Lake Forest, there are Group 8s. So it really all depends on where they It's on a case-by-case basis. We have to review where they're from.
So that's what drove that.
Well, yes, and the other part of that answer is it's not so much that we added 2 Group 8s in 2017, it's that every year different people request tournaments.
Right.
And it really just depends on what people are requesting. They don't necessarily request the exact same dates every year. Sometimes the composition of their group might change where they were a Group 2 and now they're a Group 3, so
It wasn't an intentional, it was based on the input. Okay, that makes a lot
it was based on the process, right?
In terms of the number, I am comfortable with the 11 tournaments. I can't see any downside, quite frankly. We have established ourselves very well in the community for these tournaments, and I don't think it would be in the best interest of the community to make changes on the number of tournaments. So that's how I see it from where I sit, as a comment for those who would like to either agree or disagree. The other factor is I really think that everything is tied together. Some of the comments that Commissioner Rosenberg made and some of the discussion we had prior, nothing can be discussed in isolation because it's all interrelated. And I'd like to frame it from a standpoint of short-term and long-term solutions, because we do have a problem, and much of the problem is going to be a long-term situation to get it fixed. It's not going to be happening on the short term. So the way I would look at it is, what can we do on the short term to help us stabilize our situation here with the concerns? At the same time, look at the long term and put in measures that, quite frankly, says, what are we going to do differently? And whatever that is, we have to validate to make sure it's the right thing to do, whether or not we do a pilot, investigate it, try it out on a smaller scale. I don't really matter, but we cannot afford to go up the wrong road here, and we have to be very careful that this is well thought through behaviorally. For example, we use sprinklers exclusively to water the fields. My knowledge of around the country, Arizona, particularly in the area, they use irrigation techniques by flooding the fields rather than sprinklers. But they do it in such a way because if you're not careful, certain parts of the field will accumulate water. Fortunately for us in the sports park, we've allowed for drainage and so forth. But the fact remains is that that together with the soil, it doesn't make any difference how much water you put on there if the soil is so compacted it never seeps in deep enough. So all the roots are at the surface. And as a result, with usage, it destroys the topsoil and compacts it in such a way that it's beyond repair and it has to be replaced. So one of the things you have to look at is how far along is the damage? Are we just throwing good money after bad on the maintenance side? Because anybody can go out there and turn the sprinklers on and fertilize, but if we're not understanding where the problem is, we're just not going to solve it. All we're doing is just candy coating it with the same techniques we've used in the past. So I challenge our maintenance and public facility people to really step back and really evaluate tailoring the techniques to what needs to happen to make corrections to ensure that we're not back here 6 months, 12 months from now with another request for maintenance for $500,000 plus. It would be more than $500,000. So I want to be sure that our thinking strategies in place. I have talked to Tom Wheeler the other day on the phone because he's going to be making a presentation to the City Council on Tuesday. So I did want to share with him my input, which I believe he appreciated, because whatever he's going to say on the City Council is a temporary solution. It's not a permanent solution because we don't have one yet. But the fact is that we have to really think in those terms as short and long-term type of fixtures. So on the tournament side, yeah, I like the balance of what you have put together here, and I feel it's excellent from my perspective. Thank you.
Let me, if I may, comment on your well-put comment about the short and long term, because it is. Nothing's going to happen tomorrow. But I think the short-term plan, and then I don't know if it can come from us based on tonight, but if somewhere maybe in when you do your report or part of it Tuesday, and I think it would be appropriate that the department was represented and got a word in edgewise, so to speak, is to emphasize the fact that the short-term plan needs to be on part of the council, because they're the ones who make those decisions, a concerted effort to be put into coming from 1990 to 2017. And I think, based on some commentary today, that will be coming forth from the center square or whatever, you may want to call it. And I think it would behoove, in this case, Public Works, because they are the implementers of it and responsible for it, to have more and maybe more in-depth meetings with other cities as well, just to find out. There may be somebody in San Juan Capistrano who is doing something that is even more advanced than what we heard out there. I would think that just based on today, what these gentlemen from Irvine shared, there's nothing secretive in there, or secretive, or we don't want to tell them because they might have fields that look like ours. None of that. It was so open that it was like, hey, I don't even need to know the combination. The door is open. You're giving us things that are so important that we need to know, especially after, for years, certain things just not changing, because we've always done it that way in the past. Okay? And there are a lot of, in the corporate world, companies who never changed anything that are now nothing but a memory, that were industry giants at one time, because they were going to do it that way, and they were never going to change it because it was better than sliced bread when it started, and I guess they felt it was better than sliced bread when they closed the doors and everybody went home never to come back. And that's kind of the short term, to get that put together and then to develop an action plan. As far as to address like the balance of tournaments and things like that, nothing can happen for 7 more months, because you're not accepting applications till January 2018, okay? And if you look at the schedule of downtime, etc., and we at least started moving, we wouldn't have to even be halfway there or a quarter way there. There are still periods in the winter time, late January, early February, as well as in late August, when the regular seasons haven't started, that would not affect, in my humble opinion, the balance of nature or anything if we plugged in one more tournament to start out, one in the early spring, one at the end of the summer. Now, we may not have any takers. You never know. You never know. And those being with the idea that the sports park and other fields, if they wanted them, at least be in a situation you could give it totally to the team or the tournament organizer, that they could have all 5 fields, which now gives them a lot more flexibility to say, okay, we can put all of our, based on number of teams, under 12s in Lake Forest. That's when people stay, because their kids are playing a morning game on Saturday, an afternoon game on Saturday, a morning game on Sunday, and possibly even the championship rounds. They don't go to a central point, but they stay where the age bracket plays. And those kind of groupings bring mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, maybe 2 grandmas, grandpas, brothers, sisters, the kid they're babysitting whose parents are in Vegas or whatever. They bring an entourage, and as opposed to the older kids who drive themselves. You go see high school kids play in a tournament, there's kids and the coach. If you have one or two parents, you're lucky. That means they really had nothing better to do but come watch Bobby play. And then we get the benefit of revenues that are left here, taxes that they derive, et cetera, et cetera. If you just have them using a couple of fields as kind of a, patch me, they'll take them because they need the fields, but those people are going to be moving around anyway. They're not going to be staying. Because they will probably have one or two games here, and then the next day they'll be somewhere else, so they're going to take off after the second game, go where the destination is. So again, it's a little bit of a science, to do that. And we could hopefully write the tournament policy and talking to Bill. In some cases, we've done that, depending on what the other needs are. If we concentrate when the normal fall seasons are not in play, then we can have those opportunities. And I personally don't think adding two more would belabor anything. The fields, it probably could be even beneficial, or would be beneficial.
All right, thank you, Jim. I believe Lisa has some things she wants to.
One of the things, too, I wanted to point out, just for my other commissioners, too, if you look at the tournament schedule, about half, on page 4, almost half of them are soccer and the other half are softball. So the softball ones would be different fields, correct? Mm-hmm. It was just kind of a question. Okay, so then that's really hopefully not impacting the fields, because, I don't know how high of usage those fields are currently compared to the soccer field.
The short answer is that the baseball fields are in pretty good shape. They're in really good shape.
Okay.
Yeah. We just don't have as much use like we do for the soccer fields, and we have fewer soccer fields. I think throughout the city we have about 14 baseball fields, so they're in good shape.
Lisa, if you go anytime after, let's say, a season, and take a mental picture of the baseball field, and then go at the end of a soccer season and look up at the sports park, that one looks like Sherman's March to the Sea compared to what the baseball fields look like. They look like a rose garden.
I've seen some pretty rough soccer fields.
Yeah.
Not just here, not here, but in other places, too. I like the idea of I don't know about extra tournaments, because, each club has their season or their weekends.
Right.
They do their tournaments, but the other thing to throw out there as an opportunity is the college showcases, which is similar to the tournaments. There's just no playoffs, so to speak, so that could open it up.
We would consider hosting a college showcase if any of the colleges asked us to host one. We would certainly do that.
Okay.
It would really just depend on when it is and where it fits in.
Right. Okay.
The other thing with that, which is I think a great idea, you also have some of the larger clubs involved in kind of being the power behind the hosting of it, that they are the ones who push it forward, and they are typically those clubs that have a pretty good record of their players getting scholarships. So that's visibility then, and coaches will come knowing that players from XYZ club are going to be there. So that could be something, and it's a good point. They're always looking for places and opportunities. So that could be, it maybe wouldn't have to be a tournament per se, but that's something different that, depending on timing, might fit into those brackets as well. So, and that's easy to look up when they are,
Stuff to say. Okay, so first of all, I remember going to, I think it was a CPRS class offered here somewhere in Orange County. I think Gesundheit. I went with Gary, and I remember them talking about fertication. And I remember they talking about how important it is to aerate. That helps with the soil. I just assume we're all doing this. We do. We do.
Let me just clarify. We do all of that.
Yeah.
Fertigation allows you to do it more efficiently. It's a newer, more expensive, it's a system that you install, right? So yeah, there's a capital purchase, you install it. Public Works is looking closely at that. It is what I would call state-of-the-art.
Wow. Well, I heard of that state-of-the-art stuff several years ago then. Okay. All right. I did. Anyway, okay, so that's good. I was also wondering, so are we going to discuss fees, these tournament fees?
No.
No?
Well, the commission's already directed us to come back at a
Okay,
future
come back
date.
with that?
Right, with a discussion of
All right,
fees,
well,
right.
Okay, I'm just saying, the stuff that I researched, we could go higher on that. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Okay, and in regards to the user groups that we've got, our 1 through 8, how is that going? I mean, do we have, people are begging at the door to play, or what?
I think it depends on if you're talking about tournaments. The first year that we ran tournaments, which was the year prior to this one, we received, I don't know, in the neighborhood of 75 applications. Obviously, we couldn't accommodate them all, so it was a kind of a date and time stamp and go that route. So, yeah, I think, I mean, it's good. It helps us. I think the whole goal behind that, initially bringing this to the table, was to help our residents and to allow them to have the time out there to run tournaments like AYSO and Little League and some of our other local club teams. If you notice and you look at some of these locations on here, they're all fairly local. We don't attract groups from San Francisco, Santa Barbara.
That's true.
The sports park is a great complex. It's not
Big enough.
It's not big enough like the City of Irvine Great Park, where you have all these fields. We attract smaller tournaments, or we are just another part of a tournament. So that the whole group numbering system kind of helps us make sure that we're supporting our residents first, and then reaching out to some of these outside group users. So it's been working well.
And the other part of that answer, and Bill, I'm going to ask you to explain this better than I, but we originally thought we have groups 2 through 8.
Right.
What we're finding is that we have one group 2, we actually maybe 2, Lake Forest Little League, right, for baseball, AYSO for soccer, and then aren't most of them group 6s?
Yeah, most everything after that, you're going to find that they don't, for tournaments, they don't fall into that group 3, 4, 5, even 6 sometimes category. Because if you review the percentages and the residency rates, tournaments don't bring that in. Now, if you have a Little League tournament, we get all the teams together and they come in, that may be a different story, or our local AYSO group. Not to say they don't bring outside teams, but a lot of them are the local teams. So it really puts everybody after those true resident groups into that almost same category, except for the adults, which drop down to that group 8 because they're not nonprofit groups. You'll notice that the group 6 is very common, and that's typically where they mostly sit, under 60% residency, and then still hold that nonprofit status. You know, even the club groups out there hold that nonprofit status. So that's kind of the norm with tournaments.
Okay, good to know. All right, and I was going to make a comment. Hold on, got to get to the right page. This page, I'm sorry, attachment 1, page 1. You said non-sports park fields. Where does Regency fall? Shouldn't we add Regency on here? Attachment 1, page 1. Under non-sports park fields. Can we add Regency?
What page, John?
1.
You know, there are actually other parks we could probably add to that, and we can do that.
Because Regency is a big soccer one. as I
Well,
recall.
Regency is getting smaller because we've had a lot of complaints from the neighbors there about the parking. So we've cut, and we probably more than half the amount of soccer that we permit there in response to
Okay, but we
compliance.
still add it to the list.
But we can add it to the list. I mean, there's also Serrano Park. I don't see that on here. We can add those.
Okay, I'm just saying, let's count them all. We can see if we can do it. Okay, that's what I was going to add. Told you about that. Okay. All right. So, oh, I know. In regards to, I know you said we have an $825 fee for the scoreboards. Right. It's on page 4 of
It's actually,
attachment 1.
Bill, is that a deposit or a fee?
It's a deposit.
It's a deposit. Okay.
Yes, correct.
All right, and now, do we have any kind of a fee, I guess, is it called a security deposit fee, in regards to if they break anything or they're,
Liability insurance.
well, so that means then we have to contact their insurance company to cover it?
Yes, if
Okay,
it's something
What's the minimum then?
big. Well, let me see if I can answer it like this.
Okay.
If something's broken or destroyed, we hold a group accountable. We would suspend their permit.
But I want to get paid back.
Well, we suspend their permit until they pay us back.
Yeah.
And just hypothetically, I don't know what it would be, but let's say there's something that is broken that they cleared. We have it on our camera. They broke it. They're not taking responsibility. We would suspend their permit, and we would work with the city attorney to get that payment.
And
Okay.
again, in reality, it is not the league's money or the club's money. They all have to have
The liability.
1 million, or are we up to 2 yet, or
I
are we
think we should go up to 2.
1?
1 million.
Okay.
Minimum.
Minimum, okay.
Most of them are at above $1 million.
Right.
Most of the insurance policies that come across are at $2
Usually
million
2
already.
and 2
Okay.
and
Yeah.
enough.
All right.
So there's adequate money there, that they pay the premiums on and do that.
Okay, 'cause-
And we haven't had anything happen yet
well, I've heard
along those lines.
stories that these I don't know if it was a tournament or user groups or whatever, they trash our park, and I'm sorry, I'm not going for that.
Well, what happens, I don't think it's deliberate poor behavior. I think it's so many people there, you have trash cans overflowing.
Right.
Someone spills a drink, now it's sticky on the ground. It's things like that.
We do go back, we do charge them initially for CCS, commercial cleaning systems, to come out. There is a set fee for them to come once on Saturday, once on Sunday, additional supplies for the bathrooms. So that fee is added in there. And then we also have trash removal fee. It's mandatory that they have an extra trash bin, that they purchase a minimum of 12 trash boxes, trash liners, and so forth. So we do cover that.
So that's in addition to,
That's in addition to what the field fees are. So they are charged per tournament.
so like if I call you up and say, okay, I'm going to do a tournament with X amount of people,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to say, this is the fee, and then you're going to give the breakdown for those additional fees?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right. I would like, I want us to consider doing security deposit. Like a
Why?
500, well,
I think
you think
they
we're
do that in other
covered?
cities. It hasn't been an issue. This hasn't really been an issue.
Okay, I just.
It just
don't
hasn't
know.
been an issue. I mean, we can look into it. I can see if other cities do it.
Oh, I looked it up, they do.
They do? For-
Yeah, San
for-
Luis Obispo, $500. Refunded if there are no damage to the facility and if all fees are paid.
We can look into it. That's something we can bring back with our fee study.
Okay, let's do it as an option. We might not decide to vote on that part.
We'll bring the research.
Okay.
Right.
That would make me happy.
Let me make a suggestion,
Okay.
having done this for
I know, you.
more years than I care to even think about,
I
and
know, right.
just because somebody stuck it in their policy or
Well, I know,
code.
But, I mean, a lot of places you
Hold
have
on.
security deposit.
Doesn't mean, it's for everybody, extra bookkeeping. Okay, I gotta give you 500,
Right.
and then at the end, you gotta give it back, so that's an action that, believe it or not, costs money, costs people time, et cetera, et cetera. It's extra accounting. A $500 deposit fee for what you're looking at,
Uh-huh.
you might as well not waste the time with $500.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay, that's why everybody requires the liability to cover issues And I know a couple of instances in this city where there was stuff that the fields were not left in the same condition, where they were given, the user groups paid for the pressure washing and things like
Okay.
that, which far exceeded $500.
Okay.
So
All right.
as long as that is all working, I think to just nickel dime and add little extra caveats, it just makes it harder. It makes it,
Okay. I
No.
just want to make, I'm just
Yeah.
so passionate about our parks.
yeah, no.
I want them
understand.
protected. Okay?
Yeah.
If they made a mess, if they did smoke something,
And they clean it up and they pay for it, and that's,
okay, that's what I want to make
Yeah.
sure.
To put it
That's
into
understood.
perspective for you, power washing, for example, we require that, the group users, if they trash the area and there's stains
Okay.
all over the concrete, that can very easily get up into the $2,000 and $3,000 range to
Okay.
clean
Yeah.
that amount of area that's needed.
And they're going to pay for that?
Correct. We have had
Okay.
AYSO in the past has paid us for that.
Is that something in our policy? It's just a, you're a good Joe kind of a thing?
It's not in the policy, but to be honest, the sports user groups are so grateful to have the facility. They don't want to jeopardize losing the facility, that when we ask them to pay for something like that,
Okay.
we don't face any resistance.
Okay,
ASO's
so no
been
one
a
said
good-
no way?
No, ASO's been a good
can't.
customer.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Glad to know there's good people still out there.
yeah, I wouldn't object to putting it in verbiage as opposed to stipulating, a $500 security deposit, which isn't going to cover what it is anyway.
Okay,
That they could say, okay, we forfeit our $500, knowing full well
it's going
it
to
would
cost
cost them
more. Okay, I can
$2,500.
understand that, sure.
So that might be worthwhile having a clause just in the verbiage. I don't have the words for it, exact words, but
We could just add it to the policy and just say you'll be assessed a cleaning fee if necessary.
yeah,
Oh, I
if
think
deemed
that's
necessary by
Yeah,
staff or
that-
whatever.
That would
Yeah,
make me happy, okay.
that would work, I think, very well.
Okay, then also one of the other things that I was reviewing, are we reflecting good gender, because they talked about this, to reflect gender equity? Are we doing that? I'm just saying, I'm researching. I researched it. Jim looks at me funny.
Like, I think the question is, out of all the tournament requests we get, do you know about how many are for female teams or leagues or tournaments versus male?
It's whatever.
It's all mixed, but I
Okay.
mean, there's definitely quite a bit of both. So
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Glad to hear that. Okay, then also in my research, I came across...
Title IX will never die.
All right. This is a good little paragraph that a city put in regards to synthetic field use. And it says, participant has been informed that, basically the turf fields absorb heat. And, on sunny days, make sure you are getting enough water, hydrate, and that all the participants understand that. And so, do we have it? I don't think we have anything like that, do we?
We do. It's in our field use packet. So the field usage packet is a thick packet that people get. We have
Okay.
part of our field allocation process. We have mandatory meeting.
Right.
We give it to people. They can download it from the internet. We walk them through it.
Okay.
There is a whole blurb
About the
there about the
synthetic field
synthetic
use?
fields. Right.
I just want to make sure we're protected. I don't want anybody to go, I didn't know it was going to get so hot on that field, especially if we're talking about putting some more in. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, then I think we've covered what I had questions about. So, did we give you did we give you any direction?
You did, actually, yes, you did.
We
You
did?
directed staff
shaking our head.
to come back at a future date with sports user studies.
So we're throwing more.
I'm sorry, for sports user fees. So we'll bring that back to you. You've not provided direction on the current policy, the tournament policy, which we interpret as you want to continue with the existing policy.
Well, do we, people? I mean,
I would think we would, personally, I think we need to kind of table it until we look at the fee structure, because honestly, I just texted our team manager to find out what our average fees are that we pay, because I think these are really low, and I'm just trying to, hopefully he'll respond back. But I think that's just one club. I mean, but if you look at the overall fees, and I think if you go back and do a study, I think that these are low, and I know some of the tournaments that I've been affiliated with also charge, they do a team fee and a player fee. They charge per players, so I don't know how many do that, but that would be something that I would think, to
I think
look
that,
into.
when they look at that, hopefully that
Yeah, look
will-
at the whole fee structure. I mean, I think, look at this and just approve this as is. I'd say not right now. I'd like to table it until we look, because I think these fees are low, and I'd like to see, bump our revenue, especially if this has been in place for how many years? I don't know.
Since before I joined the city, so
We're thinking like
more than 3 years. But
Okay.
so what?
3 years is no-
Just to clarify, so this is an existing tournament policy. So
Right.
what I'm understanding is that you don't want to make any changes this evening. You want to wait until you get the fee study.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay, I would like to maybe just clarify a couple of words in here. And I will not talk about fees, even though I totally agree with the fact that the fees are low.
I think they're.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I was hoping for that A and B, that we have something, even if it's just Irvine. I mean, there is another example of somebody doing it, that the premier location, you pay more to use than your
Sure.
average city park. On page 1, all my notes I scribbled last month when we really decided to slip it a month. On the first page where it's kind of the sports park field inventory. In item 3, it talks about the grass fields, and the commons is listed as a playing area. I would think you would be, as a tournament or league organizer or whatever, there is so many more opportunities at other places to have a level playing surface, for one. And that, for some reason, it gets destroyed as bad, if not worse, than the playing fields do, and even though it's not played on all the time. I would like to see us remove the commons as a sports playing area and leave it for what the initial purpose was, for entertainment and special events, where there's a lot of hooves beating on it, but not constantly.
I would recommend, if there's a consensus, that the commission
We do it.
pass that motion. What that does is it helps us,
Sure.
next Tuesday when I report back to the city council, it makes it easier to say that this is the direction from the commission.
Yeah. So I guess if maybe we could have consensus, I don't think we necessarily need a motion unless you feel more comfortable.
No, it needs to be a motion.
Okay.
Please.
All right. So I will move that we strike or remove the commons as a grass field sports area, and that it be reserved totally for like special events and special occasions.
Second.
Are we open
Okay,
for,
we're in discussion now,
Just-
yes.
let me make a comment on that. I was reserving that comment for my comments. My observations and experience is the fact that special events do more harm to the commons than you would really appreciate, mainly because of the amount of traffic that comes through there when we run a special event, whether it be a fair with booths, heavy foot traffic. If you notice, as I have, if you look at the ground after that special event, it's horrendous. Serious damage is done to the commons. The intent of the commons was not to have any activities on it. It was supposed to be open ground, but the fact that we're using it because of pressure to utilize all spaces as we can is, in my opinion, harmful to what the intent of the commons was supposed to be in the original design of the park. So if we are going to have special events or anything like that, it should be on a concrete surface, not on the grass surfaces, mainly because I've seen too often the amount of damage that is done, particularly with the repetitive foot traffic going in, huge damage to the grass surfaces on that. So I would not want to invite limiting it to special events. I would want to eliminate the special events for the commons. In addition, if you're even thinking of using it for sports, because if you ever walk that field in the commons, you'll see what I'm talking about, particularly after the special events. So I am passionate to preserve that and not allow any kind of special events with heavy foot traffic on that. Yes, you could do it for concerts, I suppose, because you're not really encouraging it's a special event, but it has to be very selective, not the heavy traffic types of events. But intent, again, was to keep it as open space.
Let me come back respectfully with
I was going to make a recommendation.
the comment. The Commons was designed and patterned after the so-called, quote, Great Lawn at the Mission Viejo Community Center complex, where it was, again, designed to be an area for special events, which include concerts and things like that. I think what we've all seen is the Commons that has borne the shoes of sports users, pickup game users, every other kind of user, and then on top of it, special events. If we did a concert, and the original idea that I very well remember was to use that stage area as a stage
Right.
for it, with everybody down on the lawn below. If we were to use it strictly for concerts, maybe once a year, a dog fair, we're talking about at most one event per month. We're not talking about using it every weekend and during the week with a lot of foot traffic. So, I'll cave into part of it. Let's remove it as a sports field and then see, because otherwise we really don't have a place to be used as it was intended to do. We wouldn't have needed it, to be honest. And sitting on concrete also is not necessarily the most comfortable, et cetera, so,
So Jim,
it's a thought.
can I just?
Sure.
Okay, this is what I'm suggesting, and you're the motioner, so it's up to you to make this. Just say soccer grass fields 3, period, delete the rest.
Yeah, that's,
And just for clarity, I would ask that the motion
Right.
specifically say eliminate the commons as a sports
okay.
play area,
okay.
a sports
Which is what I
activity
originally
area.
said, yeah.
Which,
So we're back to the original.
because I want to clarify, it's not about what's written in the policy, it's about the direction that comes through in the action.
I'm working on the policy.
Well, we can remove it from the policy, but to remove it from the policy, that has to come from council. So what I would do is I would
It's a
recommend to the city
recommendation.
council that the commission recommended that we
Right.
eliminate this as a sports
Yeah,
activity
we don't make
area.
that decision, they do, but we can
Right, we
recommend.
can recommend
The motion is to recommend removal
of the
of the
commons
commons
area.
as a sports field.
Right.
All right, so now that you've amended your motion, correct?
Not really, but go ahead.
It is?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yes.
Did you not also want to add, you discussed adding Regency and Serrano to the fields, the non-sports park fields? Did you want that in the motion?
That doesn't need to be in the motion.
Okay.
That's something that we can add that without
Okay.
a motion.
Yeah.
But just one more thing to clarify. On the commons, it sounds like the motion is to eliminate that as an organized sports area.
Yeah.
It is still a place where people can walk on and kick a ball around. I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have our camps out there. We have
It's
activities
open
out there.
space.
Right, it's open space. It would just be eliminated as an organized sports area.
Yes, exactly. I mean, choice of words, passive, low-activity type of activities. It was never designed for organized activities, in my view, and that's fine. Those are elective types of things that the public would want to do on their own. But I want to be clear that it's that versus a highly organized activity
Yeah.
creating heavy foot traffic. That's where I'm coming from. So you would be very careful to make sure there's limitations around that, but allow access from the public.
Correct, for organized sports. Correct. There is a motion on the table.
And Francisco
Which has been
seconded it, I
seconded,
think.
Yeah. And the motion is just to strike commons from that list as a use.
To eliminate the commons as an active sports area.
Okay, so, all right, I think we're ready to vote.
Okay?
Okay, everybody, go ahead.
Oh, I hit the wrong button. Vote again. I'm sorry.
Okay, vote again, please, thank you.
Sorry about that. It's unanimous.
Okay. Okay, thank you. In the second paragraph, non-sports park fields, the reference on Baker Ranch, where it lists one baseball, softball field, and then the terminology used is one soccer area. Is that giving it the flexibility that it could be two fields if it's configured for smaller, as opposed to one field if it's configured for older kids playing?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I just, and somebody had a question what that might mean, but,
Baker, right?
Baker
Yeah.
Ranch Community Park.
Okay, so according to our Lake Forest Park Guide, it listed as one baseball, one basketball, one multi-use field, two picnic, one playground, one restroom, one soccer.
Correct.
Okay, so we're good?
Yes.
now, we're good by his definition, because that one soccer field could be more than one if it was configured for younger kids.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay? All right, fees, we're not going to touch. On the first one, the third page, where it talks about users may hold a maximum of 2 tournaments per calendar year. Huh?
I'm just saying where it is.
Thank you. Good. Bring your guide dog, how's that?
That actually needs to be updated, doesn't it?
Oh, thanks.
Noting just, and it's not an objection to it, that AYSO has more than 2, which is not problematic, but
The short answer is this statement needs to be updated to be consistent with the policy, which
Right.
is, and I think that's what you're getting at. We will do that.
You're going to revise it?
Yeah, that's an easy thing to do.
okay, don't need a motion or
No.
anything like that. Just to keep it, that somebody doesn't
Right.
come back, oh, you said,
The only time we need a motion is if it's a real policy change.
Yeah.
This is just tinkering with the verbiage.
yeah, okay. Just so nobody comes back and questions it later. Okay. On the, I guess the last, no, it's not the last page, because there's something on the back. The last page, it has half a page full and half a page on the back. One of the last items, all paperwork must be submitted at least 30 days in advance of the requested reservation and can be hand-delivered, blah, blah, blah. Again, knowing the internal schedule for organizations who do tournaments, I would strongly recommend that that be bumped to 60 days. That makes Mr. Berry's job easier. Where you have a 30-day prior to event date submission, okay? The tournament, by virtue of how it works, 30 days before the tournament, the only thing they're doing is tweaking their schedule. They're not doing anything else.
Correct. Yeah, they submit everything between the 1st and the 15th of January. That first one doesn't come available until May, but correct, they're tweaking their schedules and so forth. So by the time the final paperwork comes in, based on their schedules, number of fields, that has to be a minimum, or 30 days before.
I think you could get away with 45 to 60 very easily. Because if within 30 days, they still don't have what you want, that thing is going to be a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yeah, most of them have it well before the 30 days, 45, 60 days.
So I would just put it in there. Make your job a little easier that way. Yeah.
Let me make sure I understand. Is there a problem with 30 days?
There's not. If the 30 days is our deadline, and there hasn't been a problem. I think most of the groups turn it in advance of 30 days.
So we haven't had any issues with 30 days.
No.
I guess I'm confused why we want to make it some other time.
Well, let me explain the reason, okay? It's called being proactive and being a little bit ahead of the game. If he gets a whole bunch of stuff besides everything else that he has to do on a daily basis that is always pushing on the 30 days, he does not need to be in stress level 14 if he can be in stress level 7.
Are you stressed?
No? I'm just saying,
Bill, are you stressed?
Not right now.
Do I have to answer that?
yeah.
I'm just trying to get the rationale.
The rationale is this does not present a problem for the user to do if they're doing their event correctly, which most of these organizations that are on our list of users know how to do this. So let's make it easier for us. He may have some other emergency issue that comes up that, just to have to review that and make sure it's all there, if he didn't have to do that, his day might be easier. So you're not getting any more sweat out of the user or tasking with something that is onerous to them.
So this doesn't create any other issues, does it, or?
No.
No, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 75 days, any of the above will work. Absolutely fine.
Okay, next.
Last thing, again, I'm interested in why it's where I'm trying to think where it was. I just drew an arrow down where it says cash or organization check only. Why not just organization check? Is there?
We can accept credit cards now. When this was drafted, we could not accept credit cards.
Okay. So
Organization check, because we have had one organization skip out when they wrote a bad check. This is why a couple of years ago we changed the policy to collect tournament fees in advance of the tournament so that nobody could have a tournament and then skip out. But
let me, again, maybe I need to read the small print. How far in advance do you collect the fee?
Fees are collected 2 weeks in advance for tournaments.
Okay, but that's what this is.
Yeah.
So why not collect them earlier?
I haven't had any issues with it, but we could.
Yeah, because they have their money. They don't book a team without the team's money having cleared, the individual team.
Correct. With youth, that is a true statement. With some of the adult softball leagues and so forth and doing tournaments, once they get everybody registered 2 weeks prior to, they collect everybody's money, bring it to us, and do that. So, but, I mean, it's not to say that they couldn't collect it 30 days.
Yeah, I would say 30 days, again, to give it all a little bit of breathing time.
So what do we do So what do we do with the group that didn't pay, theoretically?
We got the city attorney involved in that.
And then you eventually got paid?
No, we didn't. They're not allowed to have a tournament here anymore, or any field allocations at all.
Yeah.
It was actually a very small tournament. It was a basketball tournament.
Okay. Perhaps you should spread the word. Sorry. All right.
think at this point I am. We'll talk more about the fees when we get to it.
Now, anybody on this side have anything, any comments in regards to the actual? I think I'm good too. I know, really. Yeah. Well, and I tried to do my research for this as well, because that's how I learn. And Victor has left the room for now, so Victor, did you have anything else in regards to the policy? All right. Excellent. Thank you. Did I? Okay. All right. Does our this side of the room have anything for us to do now? I mean, are we putting? Okay. As far as I can tell, we are done in regards to discussion of tournament policy.
Unless there's a further item
I don't think.
you'd like to discuss with respect to the policy.
I think we're putting that one to bed.
Okay.
Okay. Now we can go back to. Oh, right here. Okay. Oh. Almost got it there.
Thanks, Vic. The possibility of adding, maybe during the period of a year, 2 other opportunities for tournaments? Does that need to be part of this policy, or?
That needs to be a motion that we need to take to the city council. So there needs to be a consensus to direct staff to do that, and then the city
Okay.
council would have to direct us to do that.
All right. Then I would like to move that we recommend through staff, say that right, to possibly add 2 additional tournament weekends during the period of the calendar year.
Thank you. Didn't you have like a specific time frame in
Yeah, if you want a time frame that they be
Would that
one,
help you guys?
one during
thank
the and hopefully it's the right season, the winter, which would be late January through mid-February.
Late January would be when the fields just open
Right.
from that winter closure, and then in between that and the 3rd week of February when AYSO gets out in
Start.
full
Right.
full motion.
Yeah. And, you could space, because I think you had one in mid-January typically, that is their area culmination.
Correct.
And that. And the other being before, late August, early September, again, before they start their fall season.
Correct, and we do have September, that first weekend of September is a designated tournament date.
Okay, then I would say, because they start the second right after Labor Day, the Saturday, so then I would put that at the end of August.
Okay,
To put
end
that
of
additional
August,
on.
late August, period.
Late August and late January to mid-February.
Which late August would be right when the fields open up again,
Correct.
based on the current
Correct, yeah,
renovation schedule.
right. Which hopefully, when we go back to the whole thing, that renovation wouldn't be as lengthy. But that's further down the line.
Okay, so we have your motion. No, I'm still on. Do I have a second? Second. All right, thank you. Do we need any further discussion? Nope, we're good. Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
This makes it always weird.
Oh, because your microphone. Mine's up. Now,
It's just a recommendation.
we were unanimous. We were all, I can't talk. Were we unanimous? It looked like we were.
It was unanimous.
Thank you. He was too busy knocking on his desk. I'm ready for the recreation port. How about that?
Please.
Good evening. It's like a brand new day. Happy Thursday. Tonight, I would like to discuss the May Recreation Report and all the activities that we did. We had a busy month when I was looking at everything, and I'm going to go ahead and do some reviews from Vicky's area as well, since we're not lucky enough to have her tonight. So one of the first activities that we had, if you guys were able to attend, was the open house at the sports park, which again was very successful. We decided to do it a week before we started registration, which last year, if you remember, we had already had registration. We did it a week later, and unfortunately everything was closed. Well, this year, I should say, we did it a week before, and if you remember, we sold out in all of our camps in 15 minutes. So we had about 200 individuals come through the sports park to see a preview of our camps, along with some of the camps that we were highlighting that may not get as much recognition just from being in the brochure. So we had a Legos camp there. We had a couple of our little theater camps there in the gymnasium and our sports camp. But again, so successful that it super spiked our registration within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, everything was sold out with a waiting list. It was insane. We had the Liso Creek cleanup. Nick was in charge of that. He did a great job. We had over 100 in attendance again. We had a lot of the volunteer team groups. We had a great, if you see on the report, the guy in the left-hand corner, super sweet kid from El Toro High School. He's one of the Key Club guys. He's the president, and he found that tire. I was there when he found it, and I was like, who throws a tire in the creek? So crazy, but he came out with it. That was the find of the day. I was like, I want to give you a Starbucks card or something. Who finds a tire? But all the kids were super helpful. There was a lot of families there. It was a great event. And then, of course, the Scheckler Foundation, the 8th annual Skate for a Cause. Another great day. Both Scott and I were there, and it was that rainy day. So we kind of had a delay on the start time, but everybody was there, had a good time. We got to see all the booths. The kids had plenty of opportunities to go around to the booths, and then we did end up starting a little bit later that day just because we had a little bit of a rain delay. So the kids had a great time, and you can see the great pictures with Ryan Scheckler there. They always have a fabulous time, and he's so sweet, and his mom is just amazing. Seniors had the Out of Africa safari party. Look at them. They're all dressed up. They were all dressed up in their little safari garb, and some of them had the little leotards and leopard print outfits. It was super cute. So they had a great time. That was another one of their sold out activities. So those senior parties are more and more successful every time I turn around. We also went to Knott's Berry Farm and had a little American Heritage excursion. So their little group there, they had a good time. I know that Karen was talking about it, and then they had another one of those. Wasn't to be expected. I think it was one of their first times going to that excursion. So that was a great time for them as well. A lot of upcoming events. So tomorrow, I don't know if any of you are available to go to see Sing. I will be there in attendance because I've not seen the movie. And if you have not seen, well, nobody has seen it yet, but we have a brand new movie screen. It is in full effect, like nobody's business. It's going to be larger than life. So it's going to be great. This movie, actually, because we do have the Commons closed down, we are going to be on field number 5, just for your knowledge. So if you do plan to attend tomorrow, we'll be on the baseball field, in the grass area. We also have our first concert coming up on the 25th, which is our 50s car show. So I know I talked about it last meeting, but we're super excited about that. Nick put that together. We have about close to 40 classic cars that we will be judging, and staff will be going out there judging along with the participants themselves, and we have some trophies and things like that. So they're super excited to attend as well. We have Friday Fever at the skate park, which is going to be kind of like their disco themed throughout the summer. They're going to be having Friday parties, and so Scott's come up with some great themes for every Friday, doing skate competitions for the teens. So that's his first Friday skate competition. And of course, the 4th of July parade's coming up, and the rest of the summer is kicking off. So hope to see you at some of those events. That's all I have. Any questions at all?
Questions? I'm right here.
Yeah, I just, for the comment from City Council, I was wondering if you could just go into a little more detail on that. Specifically, that's highlighted in here, specifically what she was claiming wasn't up to the EA standards.
I don't know. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
In this, there's a comment from City Council. Someone came to City Council saying that one of the baseball fields wasn't
Oh.
ADA compliant to
H2.
get there.
I know what that
Oh,
is.
okay.
Yeah,
That's,
so
that was
just
several
more
meetings
detail
back.
on that.
That's not accurate. All the fields there have handicap acts. They're all universally accessible. They have a meandering path. The reason you have a meandering path and not a direct ramp is that you need to account for the slope. Every field there is designed that way.
Right, so-
We did, for the heck of it, follow up with that sports organization just to make sure that they knew that we received that concern. Yeah.
Did she like specifically say what trouble she was having to get there? 'Cause I
She
know we are
she wants a more direct ramp, which we
Oh,
can't
okay.
do for one field.
right. Okay, thank you.
So we have a meandering pathway, and she wants a direct path.
That's what I understood.
Okay.
Right. But they all have access as required by
Would, because why would,
the Americans with Disabilities Act.
all right, thank you.
I'm going to give a couple of brief updates. I'm going to be brief. Just different projects that are going on. Portola Park, the final plans are done. The City Council allocated $4.2 million to construct the park in its capital improvement budget. What we're waiting for now is the developer to give the land to the city per the terms in the development agreement. So this is delayed. We anticipated, and the developer originally thought that this would happen around March, and now they've revised that to September. So we have a shelf-ready plan. As it gets closer, when we have a clearer idea of when we're going to get the land, we'll move forward with that. We'll build out that construction project, award the contract, and get Portola Park going.
Why is he holding back?
They're not holding back.
Oh.
When they give us the land, it's triggered by their development, the pace of their development.
Okay, so,
So it's market forces.
okay.
Whispering Hills update, the City Council is going to be discussing that at their strategic plan meeting. I believe I've heard that it's been scheduled for September. I don't have the date. I don't know if that's official yet, but that's where they've opted to discuss that. September 26th? Tentative date, okay, tentative. Neighborhood improvement plan, so the next step, I think after the City Council provides direction on Whispering Hills, we'll move forward with the next step, which is release another request for proposal, find another designer to basically pick up where the last one went off, and essentially carry the football over the line. Carrying the football over the line is a very shorthand term for a lot of different tasks. Essentially, it's the commission asks that we conduct 10 separate workshops as they refine those plans. So they're going to go back. They'll have sketches reflecting what's already been discussed. We'll discuss it in 10 separate workshops, come up with the final plans, and then those get presented to the City Council, along with probably whatever the plan is for Whispering Hills. So I need to wait until at least after September to release that RFP. Well, that's not true. I might wait until the end of September to release that RFP when I have clearer direction on Whispering Hills. Village Pond Park, they started construction last week. They are going to start draining the pond. They've been negotiating with the El Toro Water District on the permit to drain the pond. The pond is actually, we've spoken before here, pond is being drained into the sanitary sewer that's processed by El Toro Water District, so there's a permit involved. And I understand that they just negotiated that, so they should be starting the draining of the pond within the next few days. It's expected that it's going to take close to 30 days to drain the pond, simply because El Toro Water District is governing how quickly and the pace at which it can be drained. As they drain the pond, Aquabio Environmental Technologies is responsible for collecting all of the aquatic life there, whether it's fish or turtles or other things that they find, ensuring that it's treated exceptionally well, and relocating the animals as determined by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Not necessarily. Can I answer this briefly? So we know what we're doing with the turtles. That's very clear. The Department of Fish and Wildlife has told us invasive species such as red ear sliders, it's actually illegal to put them back in the pond. So those will be relocated to, there's actually a California Turtle and Tortoise Club, and they have a facility. They're actually recognized, it sounds really silly, I know. They're actually recognized by the California Fish and Wildlife Department, so that's where those turtles will go. If there's a California, I think there are Western native turtles. If we find any of those will stay in the pond. The answer with the fish is more complicated. They're waiting to see what we catch, essentially, as we drain the pond. And based on what we find, they're going to issue specific directions. They have hinted that they will likely require us to place all of the game fish back in the pond, and other fish that are invasive species will go somewhere else. So game fish would be largemouth bass, sunfish, things like that. Other fish, carp would go somewhere else. If there are ornamental fish like koi, there's another procedure for that. I think those ornamental fish have to be quarantined for a certain amount of time. Aquabio would do that, and then those would be adopted out. They don't euthanize anything. I want to be clear about that. Yeah, they treat them very well.
That's great.
Yeah.
We're very environmental.
So there's no prior knowledge of what's in that pond. I mean, we won't know that, they won't know that till they drain it and then see what's in there.
That's correct.
I guess that's the only way you can do it, is that correct?
That is the only way to do it. So they did ask us to seine the lake. Seining the lake means basically dragging a net and catching whatever you can. All of the fish went down to the bottom. There's debris at the bottom. The fish hid. We caught a single fish, which was a largemouth bass. That's how we know there are largemouth bass in there. We know the fish are spawning because it was a baby bass. But other than that, we sort of know anecdotally what people have caught. We have an idea what's in there. We just don't know quantities.
Has that body ever been drained before?
Not to... Has it? I don't know.
It has?
There was a renovation in the 80s. Is that about right?
I just remember driving by and it was drained and there was a shopping cart spot.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Let me ask a naive question. How did the fish get in there in the first place?
People dump the fish in there. The same way
it's
the
a
geese,
people thing.
and all of the waterfowl. There are wild birds there, the domestic birds that have known no other home. They've already been relocated, but those geese were put there by people, which is actually not legal. It's a violation of the municipal code,
I had no idea.
and maybe other state codes.
So is the legal aspects of this been resolved of who has jurisdiction and who's taking care of this and the maintenance and with the homeowners association?
Yes, so the city council direction was to essentially follow the existing contract, which states that the city is responsible for maintaining the park and all the landscaping. The HOA is responsible for the water chemistry and the pond. And that concludes my updates.
Excellent, thank you. All right, now, remind me, where was I going to start this time? Because were you wanted to go first, or you wanted to?
I didn't vote to go
No.
first or not.
Well,
I mean, I see you're
wait,
the chair.
wait,
so
I
I'm sure.
know, but I remember saying, okay, you can go first next time, but I can't remember who that was. Was that somebody on this side?
You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings, so you can just pick.
Just pick a number.
I'll go first. How's that?
No, you can't.
I can't do that.
Chair goes.
I know the chair goes last. I'm going to go first. I'm going to mix it up tonight. Why not? Okay, first of all, I want to say congratulations to Francisco. If I looked correctly on Facebook, you are something with the Orange County Chamber of Commerce.
I'm on their board of directors.
There you go. So congratulations.
What is what
See, I
The
knew-
Orange Chamber, the city of Orange. That's where my company is located.
Oh, the city of Orange.
The city of Orange.
So what is that?
So I'm taking over North County and South County now. Yes, they found me out.
So is that because no one else wanted to be on this, or is it because?
Because I'm super fun.
I know that. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just want to say congratulations. I think that's very nice. All right. Well, I don't. Then all of a sudden I do like a really fast, half hour, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Okay. Anyway, I wanted to report the California Association of Park and Recreation Commissioners and Board Members had an educational trip to Hearst Castle, and it was the behind-the-scenes tour. We had the head guy that runs that site, plus everything else in San Luis Obispo County, I think. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, William Hurst. I didn't know he was like 6'3". I didn't realize he was that tall. Anyway, and then plus they gave us two very seasoned guides, and they actually took us through the bedrooms and said, Cary Grant slept there, Cary Grant slept there, Cary Grant slept there. He was a busy man. He was sleeping around. And it was, I just can't tell you how wonderful that trip was. It was supposed to last about 4.5 hours. I think we started at like 1. We didn't get home. We didn't get back down to the visitor center until after 6, almost after 6. So they really, it was nice because they really tailored it to our questions and what we wanted to see. Like, hey, you want to see the kitchen? Well, sure, let's go see that kitchen. You know, and they actually, in the rooms that, you know, you're only supposed to walk on this little piece of carpet, they're like, oh, come here, come on over here, we want to talk to you about, you know, this piece of art. And we're like, we're on the actual carpet. So that, anyway, excellent trip. If they ever do another one, I highly recommend we all go. Okay, Dino Days was good, not very crowded, I thought, but it's because you were trying to balance it out. I think we could have a few more people there. I think our parade meeting's going okay. We're looking forward. When's our next big is June 26th. Okay. All right, so everybody come. I was invited to go and help at the Tustin Chili Cook-Off, which was wonderful. As always, great people that run that. And it was nice because not only I was there, but also one of the commissioners from Mission Viejo was there. And it was nice just to all of us to, you know, if we had the time to come and help eat chili. There you go. What's better than that? Also, I know this is not a park event, but I did go to the Grad Night Open House, and it was wonderful. And I think I signed up to help tomorrow night. Anyway, so...
Which high school?
El Toro High School. Okay, anyway, so that is my report. So, let's go with Lisa.
First, I want to give you guys compliments for going to the city of Irvine to take a look at their policies, and I just think that's phenomenal that you did that, because I know they have, you know, with the Great Park, the same thing with the high usage, and I think it's a good one to pattern after. The other thing, not on this or anything, that I just wanted to mention too, we live in such a fantastic community, and one thing I just want to give kudos to this community. My son finished his Eagle Scout project this weekend, and the support that we got from the local businesses and the community was phenomenal, just phenomenal, and super happy. You know, Scott showed up on Sunday. Well, Pepino's donated pizza. So where there's food, he will come. Jimmy John's, who's over there by Home Depot, brought sandwiches for Saturday, and they're amazing. I don't know that we use them a whole lot, but I know they want to be involved definitely with the city, and she mentioned it to me when she brought the sandwiches as well. Home Depot donated gift cards. I mean, like I said, the community just really rallied. It was a local project. He constructed or led the construction of 20 elevated pet beds for the new pet adoption center. So it was a local project, and it was supported heavily by the community. So I just think we live in an amazing community, and I was very, very appreciative of where we're at, and the support that we get from this community is amazing. So that's it. All right.
Sure. I just wanted to thank you guys for the amazing work you do to make sure that our fields are kept up to date. I went to the sports park today, and that's the first time I actually saw them getting worked on, and I was like, ugh, I was literally, as I was driving, I was like, this gorgeous state-of-the-art park, you guys are going to be so impressed, and I was like, oh my God. But I was like, but they're working on it. So at least we could say that, because where they come from, they're like, they don't work on it. They just let it deteriorate until it's dirt, and then that's the park we have. So I'm super thankful that this is the stuff that we're focusing on, and just super excited for summer stuff coming up. I will be at Sing tomorrow, because I love that movie. And that is my comments.
always have something to say, but not as verbose as others. But let's move on. I thought this evening was very productive. We certainly are struggling with the fields, and this is not, this will be an ongoing discussion without a doubt. I'd like to ask, though, our commission members, and I know some of you are very busy, to participate as a audience in the next council meeting on Tuesday, because Tom Public Works is going to be presenting his plan for the new year coming up. I believe he is doing the presentation, or one of his staff.
It's a broad discussion of maintenance practices.
Maintenance
is how I
practices.
characterize it.
Okay, so I thought it would be of interest to the commission to be aware, and if you're available, I certainly will be there. Depending on your personal schedules, please try to make every effort to come. Secondly, I will bring this up again, and you'll hear from me harping maybe too much on it, but I'd like to hear from the staff what your thoughts are if we were to do some type of veteran activity. What would be appropriate for the city? What kind of form would it take? And I really want to start initiating this type of activity, although it might be on a random basis. That's fine with our new budget year coming up. But I'd like to challenge the staff to think through, if we were to do something, how that would be put together.
So I know I've shared before here in response to a similar question. The research that I did, what most cities do if they want to do something for veterans is, if they have a fitness center, they give veterans a discount. We don't have a fitness center, so it makes it difficult to do something like that. I've been open to ideas if there's a way to serve veterans. I think one of the issues with when we talk about veterans is that we're talking about all ages and different veterans. It's not really a group of people that you can easily put your thumb on as to what their preferences are and what they like to do. I know Commissioner Rosenberg, I think, expressed this better than I did, but I'm always open to ideas. We don't have a budget for veteran-specific events. We do a veteran event once a year at the senior center. That tends to be with your senior veterans. We're open to suggestions or ideas that can be implemented that aren't expensive. I don't have a budget for anything. I don't have any direction from council to do a specific event.
Oh, I perfectly understand that. I was hoping to find out, and I've been trying to do some independent research, what other cities, if they do anything, what kinds of activities. You mentioned one. I'm wondering if some of the larger cities like Irvine or some of the other ones may be implementing those type of activities.
I can check. Typically, a lot of cities do a Veterans Day event. We do the one at the Senior Center. Other than that, it's because it's such a diverse group, it's difficult to target them with specific types of activities.
All right.
But I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just want to, maybe the
something.
thinking processes, maybe we'll come
Sure.
up maybe with something that will fall, but I'd like to continue those type of investigative discussions. Okay. That was my major point there. The summers are, school's out, so our school programs have come to a very successful conclusion at Heritage Hill. As you may or may not have heard me say, we bring in third graders for a field trip for them to experience what it's like to go to school in the 1800s, 1890s. We have a one-room schoolhouse, and also experience what it's like to live on a farm or a ranch, which was our heritage during that time, because we are a farming ranch community in the old days. Yeah, no electrical devices, right? Also, the types of activities that children will experience living with no electricity, no electronic devices, and so forth. It's interesting to see the shock of the third graders, oh my gosh, Then we educate them about the type of clothes you wear in those times, where the clothing that school children wear now is not acceptable in terms of girls wearing dresses, which is unheard of to many of the young girls. And we give them an idea of how they're brought up by their mothers and what's expected of them, because they are expected to be totally committed to run a household and have family of children. They weren't permitted to work or to go higher education or even to vote until vote was granted in the early 1900s. So when they leave the session, everything is hands-on, because a lot of them don't understand how to do laundry by hand because it's not necessary anymore. So in those days, you know, we have the kids go through laundry lessons. We take them actually through to experience what it's like in those days, the type of chores they were doing. And of course, they're in shock, you know. But that's okay, because they remember that. I've had third graders come back to me when they're in high school and say, "You remember when I was in third grade, you know, you put me through?" Because I've been doing it for a number of years. It's kind of interesting as they grow up to appreciate what it was like without all the convenient devices, particularly when you explain that there was no grocery stores in those days. So everything that you ate, you grew on your own. You had your garden and fresh food, and it's a whole different world to them. And particularly when you explain that the medicines and preventive medicines were unheard of in those days. So people didn't brush their teeth in the old days, by the way, for generation after generation. So by the time you're in your teens, you lost all your teeth. That's why you don't see, you see photographs of the 1800 folks, they don't smile. And one of the reasons they don't smile is they don't have any teeth. And smiling was not an appropriate behavior, by the way. That's actually true. You know, you're very stern, you know. You don't ever show.
You sound like you wish you'd lived there.
Yeah,
You know,
I wish I had my time machine, because I know it so well. I said, my gosh, you know, I'll be there milking a cow, you know, and living on a farm. So just to introduce you to those type of programs is enough to influence your thinking. You know, gee, it would be kind of cool going back there. All right, thank you.
I think ask our secretary to note the fact that tonight there was a mention by a member of the commission about gender equity. Yes. You know, Title IX strikes again, and so it's appropriate that tonight the first comments were both of our females. This was gender equity was accomplished, right, Loretta? Good. Okay. Just to make sure. Yeah, looking ahead to everything that is already planned for summer, and it's always a busy time of year, and I think probably one of the funnest parts, and starting with, I look at Dino Days as kind of the kickoff for the summer programs, and I'll tell you, it was really, really nice to go to the event and not bump into people by just standing there. In other words, they were bumping into you. So, you know, I don't know what the total attendance was or whatever. I think I saw it in the report, but it's always a hard number to guesstimate. But people there seemed to have a good time. There were some new things, which was, again, nice too, that after a while, if you always see the same thing, you start thinking, well, it'll be the same thing we've been. So World Got Out, they had some new stuff, and I would kind of like to suggest that, if possible, to find a new act here or there, an exhibit. The show up top was different, which I thought was very cool and very well done as well. So, again, kudos. It was really, really good event. The senior dance, again, it never amazes me the resourcefulness of some of the seniors. I figured out of Africa, safari type thing. What do you come as, a monkey or, you know, a lion's head or something like that? And then finally settled for the fact that I guess I don't have any safari outfit. But it was amazing to see the number of people who, no matter what the theme is, come prepared and per this theme. The only thing I did notice, and when I saw the report that kind of backed it up, is that the number was somewhat low compared to others. And I don't know I know that's Vicky's, bailiwick, and I'm trying to ask her if she has any thoughts as to what it was, because I thought the party was staged well. The DJ, as always, is great, and he's got all the stuff that he gives out, but when you've got a room, for about 110 and you have a total of maybe about 85 people, and maybe there's something we can find out that we should be doing or we're not doing that might help get it back up, because I don't remember us doing this theme before, at least not in a few years. So, yeah, and the creativeness of this wall back here was this African backdrop, and I asked Karen, I said, where did you find those? And she laughed at the shower curtains. And first of all, I was amazed that anybody would put that in the shower, so that's why they had them all on the shelf, and she figured out, just tack them up, and it looked like a jungle backdrop, so probably on sale too. But it was a really nice event, and the seniors, the ones that are there always, they seem to enjoy it, and they've got a core group and then some new ones. So, again, kudos for that, and really for everything that staff does with the programming and the execution and the involvement of it. So, I thank you, Lisa, for the comment you made about the Irvine visit today, which was so well worth it, and frankly, I hope we can do more of them. That, I think, what you were saying, plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery, and there's nothing wrong with it. So, and I, Laura, do have to comment on your comment on the cleanup about the amazement of finding a tire in the creek. That shows that you are totally spoiled to your environment as to where you live, because in other parts of not so far away, you might have discovered a body instead of a tire. So, we're all blessed in our own way. And again, looking forward to the summer, and thank you.
Motion to adjourn?